Have you ever noticed something that makes absolutely no sense? Chapter 1. The Mystery. Your iPhone reaches 100%. You unplug it, walk to the kitchen, check a couple of notifications, maybe scroll Instagram for 5 minutes. And somehow, it's already at 97%. 3% gone almost instantly. But later that day, something even stranger happens. The battery drops to 1%. And suddenly, it refuses to die. 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes, maybe even 20. The phone is still alive. Then, there are those days when your iPhone suddenly shuts off at 12%, or 8%, or even 20%. No warning, no countdown, just black screen. If you've owned an iPhone long enough, you've probably experienced at least one of these, maybe all of them. Most people blame an old battery. Some blame software updates. Others assume Apple simply isn't very good at making batteries. But what if none of those explanations are actually true? What if the strange part isn't your battery at all? What if it's the number? Because here's something Apple almost never talks about. The battery percentage in the corner of your screen isn't actually measuring your battery. In fact, your iPhone has never known exactly how much battery it has left. Not when it was brand new, not after a software update, not even right now. Which sounds impossible, because if your iPhone doesn't know how much battery is left, how can it confidently tell you 63% or 41% or 100%?
The answer is surprisingly simple. It can't. At least, not directly. Every number your iPhone shows you is an estimate, a prediction, a carefully calculated guess that's being updated every second you're using it. And before you start thinking, well, that doesn't sound very accurate, here's the strange part. That guess is actually far more useful than the truth would be. Because if Apple showed you what your battery was really doing, the number wouldn't count down smoothly. It would jump. It would hesitate. Sometimes it would even go backwards. On a cold morning, you could lose 15% without doing anything. A few minutes later, you might get some of it back. You'd probably assume your iPhone was broken, but it wouldn't be. It would simply be telling you the truth. Which raises an even bigger question. If the battery percentage isn't real, what exactly is your iPhone looking at? Because somewhere inside your phone, millions of calculations are happening every minute. Not to measure the battery, but to predict it. And to understand how that's possible, we first need to answer a question that sounds almost ridiculous. How do you measure something that can't actually be measured?
Chapter 2. The battery nobody can see. So, how does your iPhone know you have exactly 73% left? Most people assume the answer is obvious. There's probably a tiny sensor inside the battery, constantly measuring how much power remains. That would make sense. After all, your car knows how much fuel is left, your smartwatch knows your heart rate, even your bathroom scale knows your weight. So surely, your iPhone can measure its own battery, right? Actually, no. And this is where the story becomes genuinely strange. Because inside your iPhone, there isn't a single sensor capable of looking inside the battery and saying, you have exactly 73% left. That technology simply doesn't exist. Not in an iPhone, not in an electric car, not anywhere. Which creates a problem. If nobody can measure the battery, where does the number come from? Imagine I handed you a sealed steel box. Inside that box is a bottle filled with water. Your job is simple. Tell me exactly how much water is left. There's just one catch. You can't open the box. You can't look inside. You can't even weigh it. All you're allowed to do is watch what comes out. Every few seconds, someone pours a tiny amount of water from the bottle. Sometimes just a few drops. Sometimes a whole cup. Sometimes nothing at all. Could you tell me exactly how much water remains? Of course not. But give yourself enough time, and you'd probably become surprisingly good at guessing. You'd notice patterns. You'd remember how quickly it emptied yesterday. You'd compare today's behavior with hundreds of previous observations. Eventually, You'd stop measuring. You'd start predicting. That's exactly what your iPhone does. It never actually sees the battery. Instead, it watches clues, tiny clues, thousands of them. How much electricity is leaving the battery, how quickly it's leaving, how warm the battery is, how much power the screen is using, whether you're recording video, playing a game, or simply reading a message. None of those things tell your iPhone how much battery remains, but together, they tell a story your iPhone updates every single second. Think of it less like a calculator and more like a detective. A detective never sees the crime happen. Instead, they collect fingerprints, footprints, security cameras,
Witnesses. Each clue is incomplete, but when you put enough clues together, the picture becomes surprisingly accurate. Your iPhone works exactly the same way. It isn't measuring, it's investigating. And most of the time, its prediction is astonishingly good. But then, something happens that confuses even the detective. Something that can make 20% disappear without using 20% of your battery. Something you've almost certainly experienced on a cold winter morning. Because temperature doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how your battery behaves. And once that happens, even your iPhone has to start guessing all over again. Chapter 3. The Biggest Lie. By now, you might be thinking, okay, so my iPhone is making an educated guess. Fair enough. But here's the part almost nobody knows. Even if your iPhone could somehow measure the battery perfectly, 100% still wouldn't mean full, and 0% still wouldn't mean empty. That sounds impossible, because if 100% isn't full, what exactly is it? The answer begins with another question. Imagine you own a brand new sports car. The engine can rev to 9,000 RPM. Technically, it can go all the way there. But every time you hit the red line, the engine experiences more stress, more heat, more wear, more damage. So what do manufacturers do? They add something called a red zone. The engine is physically capable of going there, but they warn you not to stay there. Not because the engine is weak, because they want it to last. Your iPhone battery has its own red zone. The strange part is, Apple never lets you see it. When your screen proudly says 100%, your battery isn't actually at its absolute chemical limit. And when your iPhone finally shuts down at 0%, the battery isn't completely empty either. There are invisible safety margins at both ends, hidden on purpose. Because lithium-ion batteries have a problem. They don't like extremes. Keeping them completely full for long periods slowly damages them. Draining them completely can damage them even faster. If batteries could speak, they'd probably ask to spend their entire lives somewhere around 50%. That's where they're happiest. But imagine buying a brand new iPhone and discovering Apple only lets you use half the battery. You'd return it the next day. So instead, Apple does something much smarter. It quietly hides the uncomfortable truth. The battery icon doesn't show the battery's true chemical state. It shows the part Apple believes is safe for you to use, which means your battery has a secret life you never get to see. And this hidden space isn't there because Apple enjoys keeping secrets. It's there because chemistry is brutally honest. Every time a lithium-ion battery reaches its maximum voltage, tiny chemical reactions begin happening inside. They're invisible, silent, completely normal, but also permanent. Imagine blowing up a balloon. A few breaths are easy. The balloon stretches comfortably. But the closer you get to its limit, the tighter it becomes. Every extra breath puts more stress on the rubber. Eventually, it doesn't burst all at once. It simply becomes weaker. A battery behaves in a surprisingly similar way. The closer it stays to its maximum charge, the harder the chemistry has to work. Not enough to notice today or tomorrow. But after hundreds of charge cycles, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. And suddenly, something you've probably blamed on age starts making sense. Have you ever wondered why your iPhone seemed incredible when it was new,
But after 2 or 3 years, the battery feels like it disappears twice as fast. Most people think the battery is simply getting old. That's true, but it's only half the story. The other half is happening quietly, every single night, while your iPhone is charging beside your bed. Because Apple knows something you probably don't. The worst thing for your battery isn't using it. It's leaving it at 100% for hours, which explains one of the strangest features Apple has ever added. A feature that deliberately refuses to finish charging your iPhone, not because something is wrong, but because your iPhone has started protecting your battery from you.
Chapter 4. The Promise Behind the Lie. So why does your iPhone sometimes stop charging at 80%, even though it's been plugged in all night? At first, it feels like a mistake. You check the cable, you restart the phone, maybe you even think the battery is starting to fail. But your iPhone is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Because after years of studying millions of charging habits, Apple discovered something surprisingly simple. Most people don't actually need 100% at 2 in the morning. They need it when they wake up. So your iPhone starts paying attention, not to spy on you, but to learn your routine. It notices that you usually plug it in around 11 p.m. It notices that you normally unplug it around 7 a.m. And after a while, it quietly changes the way it charges. Instead of racing straight to 100%, it slows down. It reaches around 80%, and then it waits. Not because it can't finish charging, because it's choosing not to. Only shortly before your alarm goes off, it fills in the final 20%. By the time you pick it up, it still says 100%. But your battery has spent far less time sitting under its highest chemical stress. It's one of those rare features that's designed to protect something you can't actually see. And that's when you realize something. The battery percentage on your screen was never meant to be a scientific instrument. It was never designed to tell you the exact chemical state of a lithium-ion cell, because it can't. No phone can. Instead, it's trying to answer a much more useful question. Can I trust this iPhone to get me through the day? Everything happening behind the scenes, the voltage measurements, the temperature, the charging history, the age of the battery, the way you use your phone, the software is constantly combining all of those tiny pieces into a single prediction. Not a measurement, a prediction. And suddenly, all those strange moments you've experienced start making sense. The battery that dropped from 100% to 97% almost immediately, the mysterious 1% that seemed to last forever, the unexpected shutdown on a freezing winter morning, the overnight charge that stopped at 80%. None of them were mistakes. They were decisions. Quiet decisions your iPhone makes every second to balance accuracy, performance, and the long-term health of the battery. So, does your iPhone lie? Yes, every single day. When it says 100%, it's simplifying chemistry. When it says 50%, it's predicting the future. When it says 1%, it's making one last promise. And that's the biggest surprise of all. The tiny battery icon you've looked at thousands of times isn't actually telling you how much energy is left. It's telling you how confident your iPhone is that it can keep going. It's less like a fuel gauge and more like a weather forecast. Not perfect, not absolute, but built from millions of tiny clues to answer the one question you actually care about. Can I rely on my iPhone? And once you understand that, you realize something. Your iPhone was never trying to tell you the truth. It was trying to tell you the most useful version of it. And somehow, that's even smarter.